Hello everyone, in this video we are going to be building out a similar looking documentation website using Nextra, and Nextra is a framework that is built in Next.js, and currently they have support for building a documentation website or a blog website, and this video is not sponsored. And so this is a very good project to get started with, because I know for sure that I have once thought or many times thought about how documentation websites are built and how they are written out. So when I discovered this, I thought it is important to share it out as well. And so to begin, we are going to create a new Next.js application because Nextra is built in Next.js. As we begin, please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and ring the notification bell so that you're always going to be notified of when I upload a new video. It helps me out greatly and keeps me motivated to keep on producing videos. So to begin, I'm going to open up my terminal, and inside my terminal, I'm going to cd into my desktop, and then in my desktop, I'm going to cd into a folder that I have that is called YT videos, and then I'm going to say npx create next-app at latest, and then I want to use the Tailwind directive because I want to use Tailwind CSS for this, even though we're not really going to be styling anything using Tailwind, because most of the styles are going to be coming from Nextra. So let's execute this, and then let's run through the questions that are going to be asked. So I'm just going to say Nextra-demo for my application name, and then I don't want to use TypeScript, so no. We can use ESLint. We don't want the source directory, so no. And then we want the app router, so yes. And then the default alias, we're just going to say no. And then this is going to run. So once it finishes running, we are going to continue. And so once that executes, what I'm going to do is just cd into Nextra-demo, which is the newly created folder. And then I want to open up an instance of Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to say code dot, and there we go. So we have our default Next.js application. We have the public folder and we have our app folder, which has the default page.js that is rendered by Next.js. So what I'm going to do is just Ctrl J to open up my terminal, because we want to go ahead and begin installing Nextra, which is going to help us to build out our documentation website. So back inside their website, we are going to go inside, right, where is it? Where's the, oh sorry, the docs theme. So because we want to build a documentation website, so we can just say get started. And with the way we get started is, first of all, we create a new not a React application, but a Next.js application. I mean, you can do it with the React as well, by the way. You can't do it with React, but in this case, we are using Next.js. So what we need to do now is we need to go ahead and install Nextra and Nextra theme docs, because these are already installed when we create a Next.js application. So I'm going to go ahead and just back into my terminal. I'm going to say npm install, and I want to install Nextra and Nextra-theme-docs. And so once that installs, we can continue. It says we should add these scripts in our package.json, but because we're using Next.js, these are there by default. I mean, we can take a look, and inside the scripts, the one that we're going to be running is the development script. So npm run dev is going to run this script, so we don't need to change anything. And then it says we can do this, we can run this command if we're in development, or we can run this if we want to run in production mode, but we're not running in production mode, so we're just going to use the development version. And then it says we need to go ahead and add this in our Next.js config file. So what I'm going to do is just copy this block of code, so copy, and then inside my Next.js config, I'm going to go ahead and paste it below this. And then because we don't need to have these two, so what you can do is we can just remove that and then pass it in here inside our with Nextra. So we can go ahead and pass in next config, and this is actually what they recommend right here. So it says if you have other Next.js configurations, which in this case was this one, then it says you can pass them in as a parameter inside our module exports with Nextra, and we just pass it in inside here. So that is basically what we have done. So I'm going to save that, and then let's see. We need to go ahead and create a theme.config.jsx file, And this, we're going to talk about this a bit later in the video, but let's go ahead and create it. And then let me just copy this, and then let's go inside our root. So inside our workspace, let's create a new file called theme.config.jsx, and then let's paste this inside here. And then I can remove this for now, but we're going to come back to this file in a few. And then for the span, let me just say Nextra YouTube demo, and then I'm going to link this to my GitHub repository. So let me say Nextra dash let me say YT demo. That's demo, and then let's just save it as that. And then it says once we do that, then we need to go ahead and create our pages, and we need to create our MDX file, because Nextra uses MDX. And if you don't know what MDX is, it is basically Markdown, but an extended version of it where we can use our own components or other React components inside. So you can go into mdxjs.com and then you can read about MDX, but we're going to talk about it just a bit in this video. And if you already know how to use Markdown, if you already know how to write Markdown, then MDX is going to be very easy, because it's just Markdown, but you can use other components inside your own Markdown. So let's go ahead and do this. It says we need to create our pages index.mdx. And I've just remembered Nextra currently does not work with the app folder. So if we were to go ahead and create our index.mdx file inside here, for example, index.mdx, and then we say, let's say hashtag welcome, and then let's say for the text, welcome to Nextra. If I save this, come on, save. My computer started. So once that saves, okay, there we go. So if it saves and then we try to run our application, so npm run dev, we're going to get an error on the screen. So let this open up. So open this up, click this link, and there we go. It says we have an internal server error. Even though if I delete this file and then let's go ahead and try to run it again. Let me see if I reload it. No, let's close it and then npm run dev again. We should now be able to see our page.js running right here. So let's reload, and okay, now let's reload. So we should see the default Next.js application running here. And we still get a server error. I think that is because we already started installing Nextra. But anyway, what we're going to do now is this. We're going to go ahead and delete the page.js. So just delete it. And then inside our workspace, inside the root, we are going to go ahead and say create our pages folder. And then inside our pages folder, I'm going to create a new file. I don't know why I don't have the new file icon here. If you do, please inform me in the comments, because it is really annoying. So inside my pages, I'm going to go ahead and create a new file called index.mdx. Now, when you're using Nextra, every file is an MDX file, so Markdown. And what we're going to do is, let me just go ahead and say welcome, if I can spell it, and then say welcome to Nextra, and then save it. And then now, when we run our application, when we run our application and then reload it, then we should be able to see the Nextra. We should be able to see welcome to Nextra on the screen. So let's reload this. And would you look at that? So we have our documentation website already looking, I mean, it does look quite nice for, for a demo, right? I mean, for something that you can begin with. But now let's talk about this page. We can see that we are rendering welcome as a heading, and then we are rendering the text saying welcome to Nextra. Now we do have other things. For example, we have this index right here, and then we have index as the title for the page right there. And then we have Nextra YouTube demo, which is coming from our theme.config.jsx. So right here, that is the title that is showing there. And then we have the search functionality by default. By the way, it is by default. And then we have a GitHub link, and the GitHub link is this one right here. So if I go ahead and click on it, then it will take me to the GitHub repository, which is currently not available, right? But once we commit it to GitHub, just make sure that you update this so that it links to your own GitHub repository. And then let's go ahead and now do this. Let's jump into the theme.config.jsx. because I want to go ahead and begin talking about this. So right here, we know that we can change our logo and we can use HTML elements. So for example, I can make this to be bold, so a strong tag, and then I can say Nextra demo. And then when I save it, then it's going to be bold, and then it's going to update the name right here. So just give it a moment to reload. I mean, it does this for me. I think it's because I'm really pushing my computer. But you can see that once it updates, then it shows Nextra demo. And then the GitHub repository is right here, but we can also add other links. For example, if you want a contact link or an about us page, or if you have Discord, if you have a Discord channel, you can also link it. So how do we do that? We just do the following. We go inside our theme.config.jsx. Let's shrink this down. And then right here, I can go ahead and add, and actually not, I'm in the wrong file if I want to add the contact page. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a few, but let's go ahead and add a Discord. So if you want to add a link to our Discord channel, then what you need to do is just add a property here called chat, and then set a link to it. And I can't remember the link to my Discord channel offhand, so I'm just going to say https://discord.com. And then when I save this, and then once it reloads, then the Discord icon is going to appear right here. Would you look at that? I mean, that is pretty nice. And then obviously when you click it, if you have the correct link to your Discord, then it just dives into your Discord server. But for now, I don't have it offhead, but we can have that as a placeholder. And then another thing that we can do is we can go ahead and change the footer right here, the copyright, because obviously you don't want this to ship with this copyright on the footer if it's your website. So what you can do therefore is you can just go about this and say that for the footer, you can go ahead and change the text and say something like copyright. Let me say copyright my name, and then let's say 20. I mean, we're heading towards 2024. And then when I save it once again, then it reloads, then it's going to update the copyright right on the bottom right there to say whatever that you want it to say. So that is looking quite nice. And in case you're wondering, you can go ahead and use images inside here. So if you have a logo for your documentation website, for example, all you need to do is just place an image tag here and then have a source for your image. I mean, you can place the source inside here, HTTPS, and then add an alter attribute, and the image is going to appear in place of this. Just make sure that you style it out, because if you have an oversized image, then it's going to appear oversized as well. And just to show you, let me go inside pexels.com. Let's get a random image because we can. And let me get this one. So let's copy the image address. Okay. So copy image address and then paste it inside here. And then when I save it and we take a look at this, then it's going to update with that huge image. And obviously this is not something that you want, right? We look at that, right? And this is the hover effect. By the way, when you hover over the logo, then it gives this fading opacity kind of style. So let me take this back into my strong tag. So strong, and then let me just say Nextra demo. And then let's begin to talk about how we can actually add in files and content inside here. So as you've seen, just as I added an index.mdx file inside here, it immediately creates a tab here with the file name, and then it also adds this kind of breadcrumb navigation to it with the name of the file as well. Now, what will happen if I create a new file? Let me say something like let me say getting started with nextjs.mdx. Remember, all your files are going to be MDX files now, so always make sure that they have the MDX extension. Inside here, let me render an h1 that says getting started with Next.js, and then let me go ahead and copy some random text, so random text generator. Let's go inside here just so that we can have a massive amount of content that I can use to showcase with. So let's copy this, paste it inside here, save it, and then let's take a look at our documentation. You will notice that now getting started with Next.js is right here, and if I navigate to it, and by the slow kind of navigation that you see when you're navigating through files is only in development. but when you deploy it, then it's quite fast. Now look at this. Now we have a file. We created a file getting started with Next.js, but look at this. We now have getting started with Next.js as our title because it removes these spaces and then capitalizes the text. And then the hamburger kind of, or rather the breadcrumb kind of menu is now getting started with Next.js, which is similar to this. And then we have our H1 here and then our content inside here. And then let me go ahead and add another file just to show you something. Let me add another file called cloud development. Oh, sorry, .mdx. I just say that it should have .mdx as the file extension. .mdx, and then let me say hashtag cloud development, and then paste in our random text once again. Save it, and then once it reloads, you can see that now we have cloud development right there. Now, what if you wanted to rearrange how these files appear? Because usually you want your index file to appear first and then getting started, or maybe some kind of structure. You would have some kind of structure for your website. Well, the way you do that is Nextra allows us to create a meta.json file. So inside pages.js, I can create a new file here called underscore meta.json. So it always begins with an underscore and it is always called meta.json. And inside this file, we can go ahead and begin to structure how we want our page to look. So for example, I can say that for the index file, because I want the index file to appear first, I can say, let me say homepage, for example. I can say homepage, and then I can say for the getting started with Next.js. And notice that inside here, we don't have the .mdx extension. The .mdx extension is only for the file names, but when you're in your JSON file, when you're configuring your pages, then you just go ahead and type out the file name, okay? The file name or the folder name, but we're going to talk about the folder name in just a few minutes. So I can say that getting started with Next.js, that is a good enough name, but I can rename it to getting started. And then I can say that for the cloud development page, let's just call it cloud development. Now, when I save this, and obviously without the closing comma, because we don't need this final comma, when I save this, what will happen is my files are going to get rearranged and these tabs are also going to get renamed. So let this reload and you can see what I'm talking about. Right there, would you look at that? So now our index file is now the first file because it is the homepage. So because we have renamed it to the homepage and we have also structured it to be the first file. And then the getting started. So getting started is now our new name for the getting started with the Next.js file. And then cloud development has just kept its name. Now that therefore means that if I bring this downwards and save it and it reloads, then homepage is now going to be the second tab. Okay, so always make sure that in your meta.json file, you structure your files and folders the way you want them to appear. Now, aside from that, Nextra also gives us a way to go ahead and nest pages. So for example, if you're talking about cloud development, for example, so cloud development, I set it inside here, but I should probably have placed it inside its own folder. So if we're talking about cloud development, I can go ahead and create a new folder called cloud-development. And you know what, let me just move this file inside here. So just drag and drop so that you have cloud development. And then let's go ahead and save it and just make sure that nothing breaks on the screen. But you'll notice that the structure just changes a bit. You'll notice that the structure changes just a bit. Okay, so there we go. So it breaks our application. Now, the reason why it breaks our application is because the cloud development file is now inside a folder called cloud development. And the way Next.js does its routing is that because we're using the pages folder, so any folder inside the pages folder is considered a route. And then the files inside also considered routes. So for this one, in order to see our cloud development page, we'd have to go into /cloud development /cloud development. So twice, because that is the name of our file. And then once it loads in, we can see that we now have cloud development. Now look at our structure. We have a folder, right? Because this is the parent folder called cloud development. And the reason why we have this is because inside our meta.json file, right here, we said that the cloud development is going to be equal to cloud development for the tab that is showing. Now, this might be a bit confusing, but this now targets the folder. It now targets the folder instead of this file, because the meta.json file has access to this folder instead of this file. I don't know whether that makes sense, but I'm going to give you another example just so that it can stick properly. So let's go ahead and do this. Inside our cloud development, let's create a new file inside here called internet of things.mdx, and then let's say hashtag internet things, and then let me just say internet of things for the text, because I don't want to copy so much text. Now let's go ahead, and did you notice that we now have a new tab here called internet of things, and when I navigate to it, it just says internet of things. Now the very same way, if I wanted to structure the files inside cloud development folder, then what I would do is create a new file and call it underscore meta.json, just the same way that we did in the parent folder. And then inside here, now we only have access to these two files, right? Currently these two files, because those are the only ones that we've created. But if you create more files, you can have we are going to have access to them in this meta.json file as opposed to this one. So inside the meta.json, I can go ahead and say that for the cloud dash development, then this is going to say NextJs in the cloud. And then I'm going to create a new page here called internet of dash things, and I'm going to say IoT for the name. Now when I save it, now look at how these two change for the tabs right there. So now the link says NextJs in the cloud, and then it now says IoT. But notice that if you look on the bottom left, you will notice that even though the tab names have changed, the links do not change. The links are always equal to the name of the file that you have. Okay, so that is something to keep in mind, just so that it doesn't confuse you. And now once again, what if I wanted to add another folder inside cloud development? Well, the way you do that is just go inside your cloud development folder, create a new folder, and say something like what, let me say getting started. Let me just call it getting started. And now getting started, I can create a new file here called getting started.mdx, and then let's just render on the screen getting started. And then inside here, you can just say, I wanted to write lorem 20, but lorem ipsum doesn't work in MDX for some reason. I think I haven't configured emmet in my settings file, but that's okay. So I think I still have this text in my clipboard. So when I paste it, and now look at this, we now have getting dash started, right? Now this is a good example, okay? Because we now have the folder, because the folder is called getting dash started, so it renders the folder name. Remember when we were creating files, it did not render the actual file name, but it kind of like took out the dashes and then just capitalized them. But for folder names, it renders the folder names as it is. And then when I take a look at this folder here, we have getting started inside here, because getting started.mdx is the name of our file inside here. So when I navigate to it, I should get getting started. I mean, once it loads in, there we go. So we have getting started. Now, how do we change this folder name so that it does not look quite ugly? It is the very same thing that we did in our first meta.json file. So what we did inside here is we renamed the cloud-development, this folder, meaning this folder, because this meta.json file only has access to this folder. It doesn't have access to the file called cloud development. So that is what I was trying to explain before. So the way we would rename this is we would go inside the parent of this folder, so the parent of this folder, and then get access to the meta.json file, which is the parent for this. And then we'd say inside here that for the getting dash started folder, then I can say getting started with Nextra, just for example. And then when I save it, then it is now going to rename this into getting started with Nextra. There we go. So getting started with Nextra, and then we have this file inside. I think that is pretty much it about the file structures. You can go ahead and practice, do a lot of practice just so that you can get the gist of it. But now I want to talk about how Nextra structures things, which is quite easy. So you will notice that on the right, we have this navigation bar, and on the left, we have a question to give us feedback and then edit this page. So if someone clicks on edit this page, it actually takes them to your GitHub repository where this page is located. So basically the MDX file that corresponds to that particular page, and then they can edit it and they can make a pull request in case of errors, if they find any errors or bugs or something like that, and they can edit the page if they want. And I think Tailwind CSS has something similar, and let me just check it out. I know because I have made a pull request on Tailwind CSS before. So I don't know, I can't remember where it was, but there was, oh, there you go. So it says edit this page on GitHub. So right there, so I've made a pull request on Tailwind CSS before, so that's how I know how Nextra works. And I'm not sure whether Tailwind CSS is built in Nextra. I'm just saying they have a similar layout. Now let's go ahead and add a bit more headings. So I want to work in the home page because it is quite easy instead of working these nested files. So let me close all of this down. So my computer is hanging. So close all. And then I want to work in my index.mdx because it's the one that says welcome to Nextra. And you'll notice by there, I forgot to mention, but every time that you make a change in your file names, then it also updates this breadcrumbs menu as well, just to reflect the actual name that you give your files. So inside here now, I want to do this. It says we have a heading 1 called welcome. So let's add a heading 2 called Nextra theme docs. And then inside here, let me just paste in this and then just reduce this high text, so much text. And then let's save it. And then when we save it, then we're going to have this. Now look at this. When you create a heading, it automatically creates a sidebar here on the right side, and the sidebar is going to show links that correspond to the headings that you create. So for example, I've created a heading 2, and this is just styling. The border on the bottom here is just styling for Nextra on the H2. So when I created the H2 here called Nextra theme docs, it automatically added this here. Meaning if I go ahead and let me just copy this and then paste it here and then change this to a heading 3, so 3 hashtags, and let me just call it heading 3 and then save it, then it automatically creates a hierarchy for my heading 3. So it means that, I mean, when you look at it, you just know that this is a child of this and this is the parent of this. So I think that is pretty nice. It is pretty nice. And let me go ahead and just duplicate this one more time. So duplicate this entire thing just to show you how it is going to be structured. So if you have multiple heading 2s, it just goes on to create that structure. And then obviously these link to the actual sections so that when you click on them, it takes you to the actual like whatever link that you click on for that particular section. So I think that is pretty nice. It is pretty handy and I do like it a lot. And then obviously if you want some kind of smooth scrolling, you can do that with CSS. So for example, if I go into my app folder and then my globals.css, I can go ahead and remove this. We don't need it. And then I can use my universal selector and then say scroll behavior and set it to smooth and then save it. And then now once it reloads, if I scroll to a section, it now scrolls smooth. Okay, it doesn't. So let's say important. Let's say important, just so that we can override the default styles. Now when I click on a link here, it oh wait, it doesn't. I thought it would work, but it doesn't. The reason why I thought it would work is because I've used Nextra before. I've used it before, so I thought this would work, but it doesn't. So you can just remove it. But you can add your own like animations in CSS if you want. Okay, so that is looking nice. Now let's talk about some of the components that are available by default in Nextra. So what I'm going to do is just remove this duplicate right here, and then we can begin to talk about the components. So Nextra has some built-in components. So for example, we can create a callout, and a callout is basically like a section that you can use to grab the user's attention. So we can create a component here called callout and then close it out. So call out, and then inside here you can just say this is a call out. And then we need to import this component. Remember, that is the power of MDX. You can use components, actual React components inside your Markdown. So I'm just going to say import callout from Nextra theme docs, and then save it. And then when I save it, you'll notice that it now creates a callout right here. So this is a callout. Would you look at that? Now, obviously typing this out looking like this is quite ugly, and I did that on purpose. But what you can do is, if you want syntax highlighting, there's an extension in VS Code that is called MDX. So if you search for MDX, let it just search, and we can see that it is right here. So language support for MDX. So if you go ahead and install it, and installing. So once it installs and I take a look at my index.mdx file, I already have syntax highlighting, even for the headings. I mean, that is much better to look at. I mean, it is even easier to tell if you have made a mistake, right? So that is much better. So the extension is just called MDX. You can go ahead and install it. So this is a callout. And the callouts can take in types. I mean, they can take it a prop called type. The default one, I mean, this is the default one. It looks like, let it reloading. So there we go. So this is the default one. This is how it looks like. It looks like orangey, yellow, amber. But we can also have a type of error. And obviously this is going to be red in color. So it is going to be right there. And it shows this icon. And then you can also have another type of info, which is blue. And reloading. There we go. So there's a callout. So if you want to pass in some kind of information, you know, you can just do it inside here. And then it also has another one, which is a type of warning, which is, I can't remember which color, but oh, there we go. So the type of warning is also the yellowish, orangish type of callout. And inside this callout, you can use just MDN as you would. So for example, if you say warning for the heading, I mean, let's not use a heading one. Let's use heading 3, and you can say warning, and then you can just say that for the text, this is a warning callout. Make sure you pay attention. There we go. Now when I reload it, then you'll notice that now we have our heading inside here, and then we have this inside here. And just like you would in Markdown, if you wanted to add a block of code, you can add it using the 3 backticks inside here, which represents a block of code. So for example, I can say import React from React, and then I can say export default function component, and then I can say return an h1 that says NextJs is the best framework, and then close it out. Now when I go ahead and save this, it's going to look ugly. Okay, it's going to look ugly because look at how it's going to look. Reloading. So it looks like this without any syntax highlighting. But what you can do is you can just go ahead at the end of your first 3 backticks and say that you want syntax highlighting for JavaScript. So you can just pass in JavaScript, or you can go ahead and pass in CSS, for example, if you're writing in CSS, but we're in JavaScript. So when I go ahead and save that, then we are now going to have access to syntax highlighting for JavaScript. And that works in Markdown as well. I mean, I think so. It should. So that is how you can get syntax highlighting for a block of code. And obviously you can go ahead and you don't have to do this inside a callout. Oops, I did the wrong thing. So cut it out. You can place it outside of a callout, and it's going to just move this outside of the callout, and then you're going to have syntax highlighting. So that is pretty handy. And obviously if you remove this, then it's going to look ugly. I mean, you won't even know which is which, you know. So look at that, that's looking quite ugly. So let's pass in JavaScript right inside there. Now another component that we have access to in Nextra is called tabs. Now tabs are, let me show you, let's go into their documentation website so that I can show you. So nextra.site, And then let's go inside the docs theme and inside the, where is it? Let me see, built-ins. Yeah, there we go. So we have access to tabs. So tabs are basically these three. I'm sure you have seen this in documentation websites, but the way you can do it in Nextra is you need to import tabs from Nextra components, and then you need to create your tabs component. You pass in the items that you want to render inside an object, and then just render tabs.tab and then whatever you want to render. So for example, I can go ahead and say that I want to create tabs inside here. And then for the tabs are going to have items. Let me say items is equal to, it is an object, and then pass in an array inside here. Let me say JavaScript, and then let's say Java, then let's say React.js, and then we can go ahead and say tabs.tab, and then close this out. So tabs.tab, is that correct? What is, oh, this is the wrong thing. That shouldn't be closed up there. So the way this works is the first tab corresponds to the first item inside here, and then when you create another tab, it corresponds to the second item, and then another tab corresponds to the third item. So for example, if we want the text, I can say inside here that JavaScript is the powerhouse of the web, and then remove this extra h. And then for Java, I can say Java is not JavaScript. And then for React.js, I can say React.js just nuked themselves. Now, when I save this, I can go ahead into my Nextra theme docs, and we're going to have, okay, we're going to have an error because I just noticed we did not import this. So let's go ahead and say import tabs from Nextra / components. There we go. And then now that was the error that we were going to get because I didn't import tabs. And there we go. So we have JavaScript as the first tab inside here that says JavaScript with the powers of the web, and then Java is here, Java is not JavaScript, and React just nuked themselves. So there we go. Now obviously inside here, if you wanted to have some block of code, you could. So for example, let me just go ahead and copy this because it is easier. So copy and then just paste it. Let me paste it inside here. So oops, there we go. Powerhouse of the web, what is wrong, what is wrong, what is wrong. There we go. So save it. Oops, save it. And then now when you take a look at JavaScript, once it reloads, when you take a look at the JavaScript tab, we have this, and then the Java tab doesn't have anything because it is only rendering the text, and then React.js, and so on and so forth. So if you wanted to have some block of code, the way they do it in inside here, I mean, in most websites, what they do is if you have a tab for npm and yarn, they have different commands to run with npm and another different command to run with yarn. So that is basically how you would use tabs. Okay, so those are tabs. We also have access to another component called steps. So steps, and then close it out. And what steps are used for is just to it's called what? To show a process of stuff. So for example, if I wanted to have a first step inside here, I can have my heading 3 inside. I can say step 1, and I can say that for step 1, I can say download and install Node.js. And then step 2, for step 2, I'm going to say download and install, let's say Git. And this is how you add an inline block of code. So just one backtick, a singular backtick, and then close it out at the end. And then step 3, clone the GitHub repository. And then step 4, run npm install. And then step 5, I can say run your application using npm run dev. So let's go ahead and save that. And of course, we're going to break our application again because we need to install to import steps on top. So save it. And when you take a look at this, when it loads, we're going to have, there we go. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and step 5. Now it is worth mentioning that, or notice how this now looks, right? I just want to mention that the steps component here only works when you're using heading 3, so 3 headings. third level of headings, right? So for example, if I were to select all this and change them into heading 2 and save it, then it breaks. It does work technically. It works technically because you can see the line, but you can no longer see the numbers, right? And if I change it into step 4, then we have heading 4 inside here, but you can no longer see the numbers. So the steps component only works when you're using the third level of heading, so 3 hashtags. And there we go. Would you look at that? So once it reloads, and we're going to have that. So we have that for our steps. And then is there anything? Oh, we have cards. So cards is the last one that we're going to look at. So for the cards, basically it's just creating this layout. So these layouts that look that give you cool hover effects. Now what we're going to do is this. So once again, we need to go ahead and import cards and card. So cards becomes the parent and then card is the child. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to say that we're going to render cards and then close it out. So cards, and then inside here we're going to render a singular card, and this can be self-closing or not if you don't want. So you can have it as a card like that, or you can have it as a self-closing component. So card, and then this takes in a title. So the title for this, I can say that let's use the links that we've actually created here. So I can say getting started, so getting started, and then this takes in an href, which is basically a link that goes into getting, let me check this link, is it getting started? Getting started with Next.js. So getting started with Next.js, and then let me copy this about 3 more times. Let me go into cloud or cloud development, so Next.js in the cloud. So the title here is going to be Next.js in the cloud, and then the href goes into, you need to go ahead and get this link. So cloud development, so cloud-development /cloud-development. And then finally we have another link here that goes into IoT. So Internet of Things is going to be my title, Internet of Things, and then this goes into cloud-development /Internet of Things. Now let me go ahead and save this, and then when you take a look at our application right below our steps, we're going to have that. So getting started, Next.js in the cloud, and then Internet of Things. So when you click on this, it just corresponds to the page that you create, and that is pretty nice, pretty handy if I do say so myself. And what am I missing? We are missing, you can add icons. You can add icons by doing this. So you just need to import the icon that you want and then pass it in as an icon prop right inside here. Okay, but I'm not going to do that because I don't want to go ahead and create icons. I don't want to begin creating icons right now. And so that is looking quite nice. And of course, if you want to deploy this, you will deploy it just as you would a normal website. You can deploy it on Netlify, or you can deploy it on Vercel. And actually, to show you that it is possible, there is something that I have been creating for about 3 months or 4 months now, and I'm calling it Learner Spree. And it is just basically a website where we have HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, Node.js, React.js. Not all of it is complete because I'm only one person, doing a lot of things. But currently I've completed HTML5. So we have web development, HTML5, basically the same structuring that I was showing you. And then we have CSS. So I'm currently in the CSS. Where did I reach? I did media queries. It's quite a long page. And actually I can refer you to this if you're not sure with media queries. And then we have deeply nested. I completed this. Those cats, man, those cats. So I have CSS functions. Oh, I'm right. I think I'm here because I'm saying this page is under construction, so I rendered a callout. So that's how I know that this is where I've reached. But I completed this page, so I guess I jumped one, and then yeah. So that is basically where I am currently. So of course, if you want to help me out with this, all you need to do is just reach out to me on GitHub. I'm available on GitHub, and then we can talk about how you can collaborate with this project. It is going to be a great help because, as you can see, I haven't even started JavaScript yet. you know, and Node.js, not even a little. React.js, not even a little, you know. Oh, and by the way, this code is still working, by the way. The coupon code called Tom10 here is still working. But if you don't want to use this, all my products on Gumroad are currently $1. So you can go ahead and grab it for $1 if you want. And yeah, I think that is almost the end because I just noticed something. I just noticed something that I said I would talk about. So the contact and the author page. So we don't have this yet. So the way we do this is the following. You just go inside your meta.json file, which is the parent of everything else. And then inside here, you would render the contact. So contact as an object. And then this takes in a title, subtitle. And the title for this, I'm just going to say contact me, for example. And then it is going to be a type. Okay. I'm so used to writing JavaScript without the quotation marks, but this is JSON. So it is going to be a type of page. And this needs to be a small p by the way. It is not capital. And then it also takes in an href attribute, which is basically the link that you want the contact page to link to. So I can say HTTPS, and I can say youtube.com/my channel for the contact page. And then I can set it to open inside a new window. So new window, I can set this to true because it is Boolean. Now, when I save this, what you'll notice is back inside here, the contact me is going to appear right there. So contact me is now available. And then if you want to create an about us page, what you need to do is just say about, and then it is also an object. Once again, it takes in a title here, and the title is about, let me say about the author. And then the type is going to be a type of page. And then I can save that. Now, in order to create this, and also if you want to do this for the contact page as well, all you need to do is just go inside the parent, which is currently the pages, and then just create a new file called about.mdx. Now, MDX, not JS, because everything is basically MDX now. And then I can just say about the author, and then I can just say my name just to show you that it is working. Now, when that reloads and I say about the author, I go into the about.mdx file right here, and it shows my name right there, looking quite nice. And then a final thing that I can talk about is when you're writing your stuff in MDX, you can actually use HTML elements inside here. So you can use sections. Okay, if this is going to work, come on. You can use sections, you can use divs, you can use paragraphs, you can do what, you can basically do stuff that you want inside here. And you can actually style them using Tailwind CSS as well. But I think sometimes you have to override the default styles. So you have to keep on using exclamation important in your CSS file, which I don't recommend. But taking a look at this, I mean, Nextra does a very good job of styling this out to look quite nice, as you can see. And then of course it has dark and light theme toggle as well as a system toggle. So the light theme also looks like this. If you want to, you know, boil your eyes or something, this is how the light theme looks like. I generally prefer the dark theme because it is easier on my eyes because I usually work into late in the night. So yeah, that is looking quite nice. And of course, once again, if you want to deploy this, all you need to do is just create a GitHub repository, upload it to GitHub, and then deploy it on Vercel or on Netlify, just as you would a normal website, and you're going to have access to that. I mean, that is basically how this website is running. So learn as free. So thank you guys for watching. That is going to be the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and I will see you in the next video. Okay, so something that I just noticed in post is that I did not show you how to update the, and that was my OBS. I did not show you how to update the document title, because currently it shows the welcome. I mean, it shows the title of your current markdown file, and then it says -Nextra. And if you go to another page, it will say the page title -Nextra, because that is how it is built by default. So it says getting started, which is the title right here. So getting started, getting started with Next.js, and then -Nextra. So the way you would do that, the way you'd fix that if you wanted to have custom titles, is inside your theme.config.jsx, you would go ahead and use a hook from Next.js called use next SEO props, and then inside here you just go ahead and return and say return a title template, so title template. And then you can go ahead and set your template. Just make sure to add this comma here. You can go ahead and set your template here. So for example, I can say Nextra demo. And then what you can do in Next.js is you can say %s, and what that does is that it is going to get the what's it called, the title of the current file that you're viewing, and then place it in the title. And just to show you, let me say a dash and then %s. So save that. And this is a feature in Next.js. By the way, this is not from Nextra, it is in Next.js. I mean, obviously you can tell this hook is from Next.js also. So now look at this. Now it says Nextra demo. So it says Nextra demo and then dash and then the current file that you're viewing. So look at that. And if I go back to the home page, it now says Nextra demo home and then welcome instead of the default thingy. And then another thing that I want to show you is if you want to add a 404 page, the way you do that in Next.js is you go inside your app folder where the layout.js is located, and then create a new file called notfound.js. Now this is the 404 page, okay? So let's just say RFC. So not found, change this into not found. And then let's just say 404 not found. Now, if I go ahead and try to navigate into a page that doesn't exist, then look at that. So we have this and it says 404 not found because that is the default, that is the text that we're rendering inside here. Now, of course, you can style this out to look a bit better, but for now, this will suffice because it is just a 404 page, and you can style it out however you want if you're going to be building this in Nextra. So now what I want to do is just go ahead and deploy this. So let me go ahead. Oh, we have an error here, and it's a very interesting error. It's a very annoying error if you don't know why it's happening. So Next.js uses the interfont by default, and it imports it in your layout.js file. So your layout.js file. And then of course, by the way, you can also go ahead and change this title. You can change this title if you want. You can use a title template, or you can just say %s, for example, just like we did in our Nextra file. Now, actually, let me not do that. Let me just revert this to create next up. There we go. Now we're getting this error because we are trying to import this font from Next Google, but for some reason it is failing. Now the way you would fix this is just shut down your server and then go ahead and see this .next file folder inside here. Just go ahead and delete it and then run your server again. So npm run dev, and that usually fixes it. I mean, I think it's because of some caching issue. So just doing that and then running your server again fixes it, so that you no longer have that error. And now we can shut this down. As you can see, we don't have that error, right? So let me go ahead and go into GitHub, into my repositories, so that I can deploy this, so that I can show you that it is actually possible. So let's go ahead and say Nextra-demo. For our name, it's going to be a public repository, so create repository. And then copy this link, and then now we can shut down our server. So shut this down. And then let me say git add all and git commit. Let me say Nextra-demo. Okay, Nextra demo without a dash. And then git remote add origin, paste in our link. Then git branch dash capital M main. Then git push dash u origin main. And then as that is pushing, let's log into Netlify. Let's create a new site from an existing project. So using GitHub. And then, wait, what is the name of the repository? Can't remember. Where is it? It's called Nextra demo. So it's called Nextra-demo. And I just make sure that this is deployed, by the way. So it has finished here, so it should be fine. There we go. Looking nice. So Nextra demo, and you can see that it is built in MDX, right? And then just go ahead and say loading. So npm run build publish directory is the next directory. That's okay. So deploy. And then let's change the site name here. So let's change site name. Let's say TsbSankara. Let's say Nextra-demo. And then let's just wait for this to finish building, and then we can take a look at our finished application. So there you go, it has finished, and now we can go ahead and take a look at our website, and there we go. So would you look at that? Now we have our documentation website running up on the internet, and by default, because it uses Next.js, it is quite fast. Would you look at that? Looking quite nice. And so I'm going to leave this link in the description right below the like button if you want to take a look. And yeah, that is going to be the end. So please subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.